When you think of the Amazon, you probably think of a river. But it's so much more than that. It's this incredible force of nature. So big, it actually makes its own weather. And it's hiding secrets we're only now starting to figure out. The scale is just mind-blowing. So let's try to get a handle on just how massive it really is.
Okay, so get this. Picture all the fresh water that flows into all the oceans on Earth. A full 20%, 1/5 of all of it, comes from this one river, just the Amazon. To put that in perspective, every single day it dumps enough fresh water into the Atlantic Ocean to keep New York City going for more than 10 years. That's just one day's worth of water. Incredible, right?
So for as long as anyone can remember, the Nile has been famous as the longest river in the world. This is what we all learned in school, right? But the Amazon, well, it's a serious contender for that title. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. To figure out which river is longer, you first have to agree on where it actually begins. And when it comes to the Amazon, that simple question is the source of a huge ongoing debate.
So, to really get to the bottom of this mystery, we can't just look at the river today. We've got to go way back. I'm talking millions of years back, to see the epic, almost violent geological story of how this giant was even born.
This is going to sound crazy, but the Amazon used to flow the other way. Seriously. Its ancient ancestor, what scientists call the Proto-Amazon, actually flowed west, emptying into the Pacific Ocean. But then, about 80 million years ago, the planet itself decided to change things up. Tectonic plates started smashing together, pushing up the Andes Mountains, creating this massive natural dam that completely blocked the river. All that water got trapped, and it formed this huge inland sea. And it stayed that way for millions of years, until finally, around 11 million years ago, the sea broke through on the eastern side and started carving the path toward the Atlantic that we see today.
So, that incredible, chaotic history brings us right back to our modern-day mystery. Where is the true source? It's like this massive scientific detective story, and believe me, it is far from being solved.
The whole problem really comes down to one simple but fundamental disagreement. How do you even define a river's source? Is it the single drop of water that's the absolute farthest away from the ocean? Or is it the stream that pumps the most water into the river day in and day out all year long? Depending on which definition you choose, you get a completely different answer.
And people have been arguing about this for a long time. For hundreds of years, everyone just agreed it was the Marañón River. Why? Because it had the greatest volume of water. Simple enough. But then, in the 1960s, the thinking changed. People started focusing on that farthest point definition. So explorers went out and traced the river back to a tiny stream high up on a mountain called Nevado Mizmi, which fed the Apurimac River. And for a while, it looked like we had our answer. Mystery solved. Or so they thought.
And then, just when things seemed settled, a real game changer came along. In 2014, a researcher named James Kontos used brand new satellite technology and came up with a totally different source, the Mantaro River. And this was a huge deal. Why? Because according to his measurements, this new source added about 77 kilometers to the Amazon's total length. And that little bit extra would make it, without a doubt, longer than the Nile.
So that's it, right? Case closed? Is the Amazon officially the longest river on Earth?
Well, not so fast. There's a big problem. Remember that other definition we talked about? The one that says the source has to have a continuous, year-round flow? Turns out there's a dam on the Mantaro River, built back in the 70s. And because of that dam, the river almost completely dries up for a few months every year. And that one little technicality? Well, it keeps the whole debate wide open, leaving the true source of the Amazon a complete mystery.
But the mysteries of the Amazon aren't just about maps and measurements. There is an entirely different world of secrets hidden right under the surface of those muddy waters.
The amount of life in this river is it's hard to even wrap your head around it. Scientists have found over 5,600 different species of fish so far. Just fish. That's more species than you'll find the entire Atlantic Ocean. And the crazy part is, they're still finding new ones all the time.
And some of the creatures in there are straight out of a legend. Take the Amazon River dolphin. Get this, they're born gray, but as they age, they slowly turn pink, a pink dolphin. It's one of the last few species of freshwater dolphins left on the entire planet.
And of course, you've got the legendary green anaconda. We're talking about one of the biggest snakes in the world. It's a true top predator, and it's perfectly comfortable just lurking in the shallow parts of the river.
Yeah, the river is definitely home to some pretty serious predators. You've got the black caiman, which is this huge crocodilian that's basically been swimming in these waters since the dinosaurs were around. But then you also have the famous piranhas, and their reputation for having razor-sharp teeth and attacking in groups is, well, very well earned.
So, we've looked at the river's ancient beginnings and the amazing life it holds right now. But that brings us to the final and honestly the most important puzzle of all. What does the future hold for the Amazon?
To really understand the challenge, let me ask you a question. Across the entire, massive length of the Amazon River, how many bridges do you think there are? The answer is incredible. It's 0, not 1.
So why is that? Why no bridges? Well, it's a mix of some pretty huge obstacles. First, the river's width can change like crazy depending on the season. We're talking miles of difference. The banks are mostly soft, unstable mud, which is terrible for building on. And for huge stretches of the river, there aren't even any roads or big cities to connect to in the first place. So everyone just uses boats, the same way they have for generations.
You know, for millions of years, the river's sheer wildness and isolation protected it, but that's changing. Today, it's facing threats it's never seen before, like massive deforestation and climate change. And that really leaves us with the biggest question of all. This river survived continents moving and mountains rising out of the ground. But will this incredible place, often called the lungs of our planet, will it be able to survive us?